Hi, Simone. How are you doing?
I am very well, Pamela. Well, last few days I haven't been 100%. I get pretty bad allergies out here. And then I think there was some kind of cold bug as well that I caught. So a few days ago I was not quite 100%, laid up in bed, but today I am much better.
Good. Well, I'm wishing you well, and thank you for agreeing to come on the Unedited Conversations podcast. It's an overdue conversation. We've been trying to meet for a while, but we've got a good reason to meet today, which we're going to share with our viewers. So let's make a start then, and let's start where you are because it looks like the sun is shining where you are. Where are you based at the moment?
It sure is. And first of all, just to quickly say thank you so much, Pamela, for having me on your platform. It's an honor. Um, I happen to be in beautiful Baltimore, and yes, the sun came out today, which I think is a good sign. So, yeah, it's great to be here.
That's wonderful. So, what brought you to the States? Why are you in Baltimore?
I guess one word, that four-letter word, love. Um, so yeah, back in 2022, I was, and I guess we'll probably go into this a little bit later, but part of the work that I do is, I'm in the creative media industry. So I describe myself as a multifaceted creative individual. I do editing work for clients, editing manuscripts. I also ghostwrite, and I also have my own podcast platform on YouTube where I interview a number of personalities. So I'm sort of knee deep in discovering and building Simone, my business, and working with my social media presence and all of that back in 2022 when this young man came and knocking on my door. Um, and yeah, it was an interesting period for me because, as I say, I was quite focused. I don't think there's anything wrong sometimes with just being all about your business and trying to, build your brand, etc. So it was very much a kind of, I'm not quite sure. Can we just hang on for a sec? But he wasn't having any of that. And yeah, the following year we got engaged, and a few months later we were married in 23.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on your wedding and on your marriage. We're still practically honeymooners, then, aren't you? Still in a honeymoon zone, which is nice. In your bubble, which is wonderful. So, I just wanted to know in terms of your heritage and your parentage, you and your husband, historically, where are you from? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about him.
Him or me as well?
Yeah, you as well.
Actually, yeah, we're both of Sierra Leonean heritage. So his parents, my parents, are from Sierra Leone, which is a great thing. That was one of the really cool things about when we got together. We realized that we just had so much in common.
Yeah.
Um, but he has been based in the US pretty much all his life, whereas I was born and raised in the UK. I've been fortunate to go back to Sierra Leone. I went when I was 5 and came back when I was 15. Um, but yeah, both kind of US residents. He is, and I'm a UK resident. And obviously, we did the long distance dating and courting and all of that. And at the moment, we're making it work because, as you probably know, you are not allowed to stay full time. Even though you're married to a US citizen, you've got to go through the process of getting the papers sorted. So at the moment, we're restricted to the 12 weeks here and there. But yeah, we make it work.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. That's wonderful to hear, and I wish you all the best with the process as well. I know that it can be long, but if two people are destined to be together, it will work out. Somehow, and I suppose that links very well with your faith as well. That I know that you're a Christian, and putting all those things in the hands of God, there's no reason why it shouldn't work out for you. But how important is your faith to you?
Very important, Pamela. I firmly believe that a lot of the things I'm achieving today had it not been for the fact that I do have that faith in my creator. I don't think I would have come this far at all. I mean, just taking the whole dating thing, it's not been an easy feat conducting a long distance relationship. He's got his issues and things he's dealing with here, as have I back in the
Yeah.
UK. But with determination and having that positive outlook, that always helps. And ultimately, faith, who made it work. And for me personally, in my business and looking back on my life's journey thus far, I can see how God's hand has led me to where I am. For sure, it's been a
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. But in the interest of transparency, I always like to let my viewers know how we know each other, what's the connection, between us. So I have heard of Simone for many years. You have a beautiful friendship with my sister, Lorraine. And I think I met you at Lorraine's wedding. I don't recall us meeting before then,
Oh,
but definitely heard of you. But how
right.
did you and Lorraine meet? Where did that connection come from?
You see how I start to smile as soon as you mention her name. Yeah, Lorraine is a very dear friend of mine, and I feel blessed actually. Our friendship has endured and lasted this long because we met way back, I think, in around 2011. I want to say 2012. That's going back to my local government days. So we're both working for um, the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. And yeah, we literally just hit it off from the get go. From the get go. I think it was one of those, even as I think we can all remember what it was like in the playground where you'd see somebody your age and you immediately say, I
Yeah.
want to be her friend. And I think it was literally that on both parts. The second
So
we
was that in
clocked,
the workplace? Was
in the
that
office,
what?
in the
Right,
office.
right.
So we were
And
colleagues to begin with, and then became friends, and then started to hang out. And
yeah, and it's a friendship that continues and has lasted. As you know, Lorraine got married during the pandemic, so she was only allowed 15 people at her wedding, and you were representing all of her friends who she couldn't have there. So yeah,
yeah.
it was quite a time, wasn't it, trying to navigate how that was going to happen, how we had just Ray lost his mum the August,
Mm.
and Lorraine we lost our mum the September. Um, and one thing she was quite clear on is that get it done, get the marriage done, make sure that it happens. And we were able to honour her wishes that December. What's your recollection of that day?
Oh, my recollection of that whole period. I mean, yeah, I was there obviously with the planning and all of that. I mean, I remember that fateful day in March 2020. And I recall the stress because, yeah, obviously she couldn't really do anything in sense, even though the writing was on the wall, we suspected we were going to go into lockdown, but nothing was official until that last moment. So I felt for her, I really did. And obviously, inevitably, she had to cancel or rather push it back. Um, and then it was unfortunate, yeah, like you say, both mums passed in that intervening period. So it just felt like, my goodness, if it's not one thing, it's the next. But then the day itself, Pamela, I I still recall it with a lot of emotion, to be honest, because that was the first time I met your dad. And of course, I'd heard through Lorraine that, he was struggling with losing his wife.
Mm,
And it was so obvious when I saw him, the pain was just etched on his face. But at the same time, he's glad to be walking his daughter down the aisle and, obviously trying to do a good job and all of that. But you could sense the emotion. Um, But to answer your question, the one thing that stands out, if you remember when Ray was standing at the front, and obviously his back was towards the back of the room, and Lorraine entered from behind. And when Ray turned around and saw Lorraine in all her finery, looking as stunning and as gorgeous as ever, and he started to get emotional, that was it. That was it. I think the whole room, I don't know if you recall, but I don't think there was a dry eye
No, no, not
in
at all.
one.
They had been on a journey and to get to this point, and yes, it was a very lots of love in the room. So there was lots of love in the room for Ray and for Lorraine as well, and full of happy memories as well. So they did have the gorgeous wedding, and she was appreciative of the fact that everything was pulled back, all of the bridesmaids, all of the, all of this, the things that we do that we think that we, constitutes having a wedding, when basically just the two of them that mattered with their nearest and dearest. So yes, I'm glad that you came away with fond memories of what that time was like.
Mhm.
Um, what was your wedding like?
My wedding was a very understated affair. It was literally my husband, a witness, and myself. It was just a small affair in a registry. And yeah, we just marked the day very quietly. We came back and we had a celebration here, toasted, lots of phone calls from close friends and family. Um, and because we're both very private individuals, Pamela, so we'd kept our relationship under wraps, didn't really want too much involvement and all of that. So it was a surprise to everyone, with the exception of our family.
Yes.
Um, no one knew. And to this day, questions are still being asked, like, how is that possible? How is it you could be dating someone, Simone? I didn't know about it. And it was across the pond. Um, and yeah, a few people would have made assumptions that we had this big, lavish wedding, which we didn't. But yeah, the intention is to, because my husband's aware, obviously, that I'm a woman of faith. So the intention is to have a church wedding, to have it blessed. And we're working on that. And even that, again, will be a relatively tight knit affair. Just blessed to have both mums in the UK. So we'll literally just be our family and maybe a few close friends, but nothing
Oh,
major.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful if you can do that, because, I do think it's important to have our elders here while we to be involved in those kind of milestones, like getting married, like having your marriage blessed, and all of that. So I hope that you get to do that in due course. When are you likely to come back to the UK?
It's funny you should ask. I was due to fly back today,
Oh,
and it's been pushed back by a week. So I should be back next week, God willing.
yeah. And how long do you think you'll be in the UK for?
At the moment, it's working out roughly to about 2, 3 months, something along
Mhm.
those lines. So there's always things that are in the pipeline. So, for instance, there's some building works going on at the family home where my mom is, and I've been very blessed to be surrounded by some amazing individuals, who've been really supportive, not just family, but associates, friends, and even the builder who's working on a log cabin in the garden right now has turned out to be a very very special man, because he's actually doing all of that in my absence. So what he does is he sends me almost daily reports, pictures. This is what I've done. I need to get these materials, keeping me informed. And by the time I get there, I mean, from what I can see, actually, it's pretty much, I'd say it's about 85, 90% done.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful. Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah,
always good to have good builders and carpenters and plumbers around you. So you're very, very much blessed
I believe
to
that.
have those people in your life.
Yeah.
Simone, what do you miss about the UK when you come back? What's the so for example, when I go to Barbados, I have to get a roti. from a particular place. I'm not going to give them any business, but from a particular place, I have to go and I have that. And an all beef or a chicken and potato roti. But that is my thing. That lets me know that I've arrived back home. So when you come to the UK, what are the rituals that you have that you think, right, you know what, I must have X, Y, or Z?
My goodness. Now you put me on the spot. Do you know, I don't think there's any one thing that I rush back to or would say is a must have. I do have favorites, things that you can't get out here. Um, Fish and chips being one of them. Yes, they have fish and chips here, but nothing beats, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, East End fish
I
and
know.
chips.
Yeah.
um, Mayonnaise. They don't do mayonnaise. Yeah. And I do love my salads. So we do a lot of trying to do healthy foods every now and then. Lettuce and uh, what would you call it? The name's just escaped me, but I'll do lots of healthy stuff, tomatoes and boiled egg and celery. That was it. Chopped sweet peppers, just bung it all in. And sometimes, add some tuna or sardines for good measure. But then you got to have a dollop of mayonnaise. And they don't have that here.
Oh,
Yeah. So little things like that. But I guess beyond the food thing, it'll be the people, my family and friends. So I mean, Lorraine and I are already making plans to meet when I get back. Um, and yeah, I do miss my friends and definitely my family as well, for sure.
so you're coming back. You're going to probably have fish and chips and your dollop of mayonnaise. When you come back. Um, Tell us what are the other reasons why you are on our podcast, but one of the reasons why you're back in the UK and some of the things that you're hoping to get through with.
So one of the main reasons why I'm on the podcast, I guess, aside from the fact that it's an honor to be on Pamela R. Haynes' podcast, I would have found any reason to be on here. But in all honesty, I recently released a book, which is right here, Life
Oh, it
Lessons,
looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. It's gorgeous. Yeah, wonderful.
Life Lessons Learned, the journey from girlhood to womanhood. And yes, it does feel amazing holding it in your hands. And that's been a long time coming. So yes, it'll be great to share the ins and outs, how that came about with your audience. And I guess between now and when I head back to the UK, the book now having been published, the next major diary event would be the book launch, which by God's grace will be happening on Friday, the 24th of April. It will be a virtual
Will it
affair.
be live streamed, Simone?
It'll be a virtual affair.
Oh,
So,
good,
yeah,
good.
so, the replay link will be available shortly after. And I guess it's all things promotion, branding, marketing. So I
Now we
have a
have to let our listeners in on a little joke because I'm friends with we have a mutual friend, Janet McNeish, and I helped her put together some, just box standard promotional bits for her book, a 3D book cover from different angles. So then she asked me what app did I use to do that because she wanted to do that for her friend. And I said, rather than adding to your load, because she's just promoting her book as well, just send me the book cover and I'll do it for you. And I was delighted that it was your book. And I said, I know this woman. I know Simone. And I'm delighted to do that for her.
Thank
So it was good to be able to do that and to send that to her so that she could send that to you. And it just
you.
goes to prove that you're in a lovely circle of people who are around you, so you're bumping into the same names over and over again. But how did you and Janet become friends?
Absolutely. Just pause that thought. When you bring that up, I'm so glad you did. And thank you for doing that, Pamela.
You're
And this,
welcome.
the thing when we talk about faith, because as you know, you've written many books, and when you're in the throes of, okay, right now I've done this, I need to go on to the next, you don't have a moment to even come up and think, right, 5 minutes with Canva, let me just quickly get my head around that because there's so much going on. And like you say, when you're surrounded by this loving circle of people who are just rooting for you and they're wanting to see your success because they genuinely have your best at heart. For me, that is just testimony as to how God moves because that was so timely. I can't remember what was happening at the time, but I was up against it, as you always are, and I needed to get these images out. And little did I know that Janet was working on my behalf. Those conversations were going on with you, and we have this connection. So yeah, it's a beautiful feeling, and that's why for me, faith.
Yes, I mean, I love doing them. I love making them. I can do them in a matter of minutes now. Such an expert at doing them. And I know that Janet said that you were in some kind of meeting or doing some presentation and you wanted a visual image to pull up at the end of your presentation. And it was much easier for me to just do it rather than to show her the app and then she has to familiarize herself with it. I said, oh, just send me the image, I'll do it. And then straight off to you. And she said that you were able to then present that image at that particular meeting that you was in, which is absolutely wonderful. And I like that you have her in your circle as well, because I have found her to be such a lovely person to be around as well. So yeah, I'm glad that I was able to help to make that happen for you. And that was one less thing that Janet had to worry about when she was actually working on her own book as well. So you say the launch is coming, the book launch is coming up, and by the time this podcast comes out, um, the book launch would have already passed. But what are you hoping for the day?
Oh, that it goes well. I I did a bit of back and forth, Pamela. I was umming and ahhing because the
Yeah.
joy, I guess, of being on both sides of the pond. So initially, I thought, let me just wait till I get back to the UK. Like I said, I was due back today, meant to arrive tomorrow morning. Um, but then on the other hand, that whole thing about momentum. And the book did get published 2, 3 weeks ago. And yes, whilst there has been a lot going on behind the scenes, and I am trying to keep up with the visibility and posting every now and then on social media just to keep the awareness going, I think a launch is quite a significant part of the journey that really shouldn't be unduly delayed. And whilst I would have preferred to have, yeah, I think I would have preferred to have an in-person event, just because I have a certain sense of how I would like it to feel, how I want the ambience to be. I want it to be an experience for my attendees, for the readers, for the audience, and all of that. But timings haven't quite kind of worked out, so that just gets um, pushed back. But in the meantime, there's nothing wrong with doing something virtual because we're now in that world, right? So, but the virtual event itself, yeah, I'd like it to be a meaningful, I want to say low key affair, but I want my attendees to feel like they've taken something away from the event. So ultimately, and again, this is an interesting thing. This is something I do for my clients, host book launches, etc. So now having it flipped and thinking about, right, how would I like to come across? How would I like to present myself to my readers? It does feel surreal me actually saying that. Um, but I'd like to come across as approachable, as much of an open book as the book is. for them to get to know, the author behind the book, the reasons why I wrote it, and a little bit more about me, I guess.
I mean,
So
that's
yeah.
wonderful. I mean, do you have anything in particular lined up? Because I attended Janet's book launch. Come on. I
Hello.
attended Janet's book launch a few weeks back, and she's got music and poetry and a whole lot around that. These are turning into really good events. It's not just one woman and the camera. She's got video footage coming in from other speakers. I think she had the person who wrote the foreword for her book also came online. It's a whole production of people. So do we have any what's your plan? How do you see it all panning out?
Well, you get me nervous now, my goodness. It's literally all coming together as we speak, and I am hoping to have contribution from various members within my circle, people who have been there, people who have supported. And I don't take for granted the input from any of my family and friends, even if it's just been a review, because I had the book reviewed by a select number of people before it was actually
So,
published, just to get that, feedback, peer review, if you like. And it's all of those people that have made the book possible. So I would love to have their input in some shape, form, or manner. And whether that's through reading reviews on the day or doing video footage, it's all literally happening as we speak. Literally. I don't really have much time.
ooh, exciting, exciting.
But
So, will Simone, tell us what the book is about?
life lessons learned. It the idea came from these sayings that I grew up with, Pamela. You remember I mentioned I went to Sierra Leone as a 5-year-old, and I was fortunate to be around my grandma of blessed memory, and obviously other family members. And my gran was a very spiritual, stoic, sensitive, beautiful soul. But she had all these sayings. And one of them was, give the world the sunshine, tell Jesus the rest. And as a 5-year-old, you can imagine I'm listening to this woman and thinking, what on earth is she talking about? Who is this Jesus anyway? What does that mean? Um, but little did I know, many years later, as one starts to reflect and look back, little did I know that, these elements of her personality, the fact that she was, like I said, very stoic, very, she'd been through hardship and so on, but nothing fazed her, and she, fell down, she got back up and so on. I was picking up a lot of her personality traits, learning to be strong, learning to give the world the sunshine and tell Jesus the rest. And it wasn't just my gran. My parents had similar sayings as well. My mum would say things like, the longest road has a turn. And again, as a child growing up, didn't always quite make sense. Whatever I was going through at the time, she's trying to comfort me that don't worry, this too shall pass. I couldn't quite see it. And I'd look at her and think, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. I really hope this turn would happen now because I'm done. And my dad, he had sayings as well, like, before they've had me for breakfast, I've already had them for lunch. So I sort of sat down one day, well, maybe over a period, not necessarily one day, but would go through these sayings in my mind and could see how they have shaped me from childhood to adulthood. And then the idea came to actually use those sayings as chapter titles. So I chose the top 7 and turned them into chapters, and somehow managed to give my life history from growing up as a little girl right through to becoming a woman. And the final chapter ends with meeting the love of my life and getting married.
That's so beautiful, Simone. And I just love hearing the origin of your stories and the sayings that your parents used to say as well. Because I can resonate with that because my mother too had lots of sayings that you grow up with. A few of her elders that were around at the time, and you are confused, you don't understand, and until you actually experience it. And for example, the long road does have a turn. It does. My mum would say, one smart dead at two smart door. So just as you think that you're clever, there's somebody out there that's more cleverer than you. And, the more the monkey climb, the more he show his tail. So, the more you climb, beware of what you're doing behind. Yeah. Because you're exposing us, you could expose yourself. So yes, all of those kind of sayings, some of them I've had to reject. Some of them like self-praise is no recommendation. And in the age of the internet and social media and everything else, you have to sell yourself, isn't it? You have to sell yourself in the workplace. And I can imagine when it comes to your work, you have to let people know what you do and how you do it to win work and to win contracts and so on. So there's been a reflection period for me to, I will take this one, but I'm going to reject that one because it doesn't serve me. Yeah, can you say more about stuff like that?
It's interesting you should say that because during the writing of the book and as I was sharing with people, I think I remember one time a lady asking me, "So, what's your favorite chapter title?" And it just happened to be, I love them all, but my grants stood out the most. Give the world the sunshine, tell Jesus the rest. Because, yeah, it was a very big thing in our household, Pamela. You don't go talking about your business. You don't go airing your dirty laundry in public. You remain stoic and keep it all zipped. But I had a challenging conversation with this individual. She said, "Yeah, I don't know about that because, in this day and age with mental health and, people not being able to express themselves and talk about the things that bother them." And I had to do a 360. And, I'll be transparent and say that I had to go back to the drawing board and go through the manuscript. I mean, boy, I edited and re-edited so many times. And that was one of the edits. I then had to rephrase a certain paragraph and make it clear to the readers that, listen, I don't advocate bottling it all up, keeping things in. That is definitely not what I'm saying here, because there is a place for when you're going through hardship to be able to express your feelings. And I was speaking to my male readers as well, because there is a slightly higher tendency for men to want to keep this tough exterior,
That's
boys
right.
don't cry, and all of that stuff. So I was very mindful of my audience, and all their different shades and colors and across the different demographics. So I made it clear in the book that there's a time and a place. So you will instinctively know if you're somebody who's alive to that whole thing about self-actualization and wanting to personally develop and grow, and you're working through issues, for instance, you will know instinctively, when you reach a point where you need to seek help, for instance, you need to see a therapist, or you need to share with your family and unburden. I'm not necessarily talking about letting out all your business to all and sundry, but you can be selective about the people you choose to bring into your inner world if you're going through any kind of inner turmoil and what have you. But I still do believe overall there's a lot to be said for nobody wants to be around miserable people. And at the end of the day, we all have challenges that we're dealing with, and we're not going to be walking around, wearing our problems on our faces. We do have to um, strive to have that strong exterior, because life is going to throw some some hard knocks, and yeah, persevere through it.
Yes, I mean, I still love the phrase that your grandmother, show the world sunshine. And that could be interpreted as just being kind to someone, and acting in a way that you just share kindness, or, you just share a smile. I went out yesterday to visit a friend, and, one of her neighbors came out and just beamed a smile. it was contagious. I had to smile back. She was sharing her sunshine. That's all she had. I wasn't after anything from her, but sharing a smile as I walked along. And she said she smiled and I smiled back. So I still like the idea of sharing sunshine with other people who may not have it. They may not have it, and just your presence alone, the way that you carry yourself, a kind word that you said. I went to the Mobo Awards last month. Fantastic experience.
Fascinating.
And on the train on the way back, the woman just smiled and said, "Oh, what brought you to Manchester? And do you live there or do you live in London?" And da 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 da. And we ended up having a conversation. Thankfully, it wasn't the whole train ride, but it was a nice, pleasant exchange of just sharing what sunshine may look like. The other thing that I want to pick up on what you said as well is about the importance of having a circle of friends. And we've spoken about Jeanette, so we've spoken about Lorraine. How do you cultivate, especially the older you get as women, how do you cultivate a good friendship circle around you?
Yeah, it's a good question. They often, I don't know what the exact saying is, but they often talk about in terms of how successful or happy you are is often gauged by your circle. That whole thing about iron sharpening iron. I am quite intentional these days about my friendship circles. And yes, as you get older, experience teaches you that. I've become a lot more discerning, for sure. I am very intentional also about building my community around me. So obviously, I have my established community back in London in the UK. But since coming over here, living also in Baltimore, I've become very mindful of the people that I associate with. So I have a church community. I have a few select neighbors, in the building who, yeah, become, and it's always the least likely sources. The other day, for instance, just to give you an example, so it's a great building where we live, and we've got directly down below the ground floor is this beautiful um, Italian bar restaurant, Pachi's. So a lot of us neighbors tend to end up there because it's just so convenient. There are other places within walking distance. And there's a friend, my husband's friend, who regularly goes there. So we'll bump into him. It's a bit like going down to the pub, isn't it? You're local and you meet up with
Hmm.
your neighbors, you have a good old natter and you catch up on what's been going on in the week, etc. So he was super excited when we told him about the book. In fact, I think one of the first pictures I took with the proof copy with the not for sale
Right.
was with him. And the other day, he said, been saying, I'm going to get a copy so you can sign. I said, yeah, no problem. And the other day, he told me he bought 5 copies in one sitting. And I was just blown away. Wants me to sign them and all of this stuff. So this is what I mean about, you just never know where you're going to get that support, the friendship, and so on. And yeah, these days I've become a lot more spiritually aware, Pamela. So I very much just allow things to happen organically. And I think those who are meant to be within the circle will be. And if they're not, they will naturally fall away. And it's okay. We just keep it moving.
Yes, that's wonderful. And you will find that now you've written a book, your circle will increase to include people like the gentleman who bought 5 copies of your book. I have a similar story where I met with a reader of my book, and we met for afternoon tea, and she told me, "Did you send your book to Oprah?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Oh, don't worry, I've done that." Did you send your book to, Tyler Perry? I said, Definitely not." And she said, "Well, don't worry, I've done that for you." And
Mm,
the kindness of people who are strangers, who are so impassioned by what it is that you're trying to do, has been absolutely amazing. I spoke to her again recently.
mm.
She now resides in Barbados, but will always check in with me to find out how I'm doing with my writing. So, as well as the circle increasing, the circle also decreases a lot as well, because you are now Simone Smart, author, of a book, and that can send some people spiraling into some really poor behavior, because maybe they haven't been able to do so yet. Because this is something, if you remember, Simone, we sat in Lorraine's kitchen, and this is something that we spoke about, that you said, I'm writing a book at the moment, and the challenges and everything else of what you're trying to do, but you've done it. How do
Yeah.
you feel knowing that you've achieved such a milestone?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. It's good to cast your mind back because once you've achieved, Pamela, you tend to forget. Or is it me? I don't know. But yeah, you're then on to the next thing and then the next thing. But I do recall that conversation. And and in all honesty, it's people like yourself, Pamela, that I find hugely inspirational. And these are the things that help you keep putting one foot in front of the next. Simple. Um, there have been lots of challenges. And I remember initially I set out to write the book in a couple of months. I started writing it in the summer of last year, June, July. And the plan was to publish by August. And then life got in the way and life happened because life be lifing. And one notable life event, which I mentioned in the book, is a dedication to my late uncle who passed away in December. So he started to fall ill in the summer of last year, around July, August, just as I was flying back to the US. And yeah, long story short, by the time I got to the US, we realized it was actually quite serious. He ended up, dealing with a fatal condition, and we lost him just before December. So plans that I had then, thinking I was going to get it published by Christmas, didn't happen. But yeah, long story short, here we are. It eventually got published, what, 8, 9 months later. And I feel proud. I feel super proud. I did it. I did it despite all the odds. And there's been lots going on. I'm
Because a
not
lot
trying
of
to,
people say it, don't they? They must say it to you as well. Oh, I'm going to write a book. And, Simone's done it. I'm going to try and do it now. But not everyone gets to do it. Life be life in. They lose their train of thought, job loss, losing people. There are thousands of reasons why people don't get to do it. But Simone, you absolutely did. You smashed it out. It looks beautiful. I can't wait to get hold of a copy, for myself so that I can read your story. But there's something about being able to pause to take it all in, because you can get consumed. You write a book, and then there's the marketing of the book, the PR of the book, the interviews, podcasts, everything else, that you have to do. Things, I can understand that your to-do list must be really long, of activities that you need to be doing. But there's something about using the opportunity to also pause and think that um, I'm an author now. And does the word author trail easily off your tongue? What has your experience been like?
yeah. So that's a kind of two-part question. That's quite a multifaceted question. It's good to pause, Pamela. And I think maybe I haven't paused enough, and that's why my body gave way. And I've been a little bit under the weather this last few days, week or so, because I've literally just been going from one thing to the next to the next. And yeah, it's good to just sit back, take a moment, pat on the back. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. A bit of what I think what you mentioned earlier about self-praise. I don't remember the exact saying, but there's nothing wrong with just giving yourself that accolade, like, well done, girl. Despite all the odds, you managed to do it. This was a dream for the longest time. I had an idea in my head in terms of how the book would pan out. And I had an idea in my head about the colors. This happens to be my favorite color, aquamarine turquoise. And I knew exactly how I'd like it to look. And when you're dealing with those thoughts and ideas and it's all whirling around, like who's going to do this and who's going to help me with that? And then to finally see the finished product it's an amazing feeling. It's surreal. Yes, it's real. Um, it's a wonderful feeling. It really is. I forgot the second part of your question.
And so have I. It's a generic question. I suppose what I wanted to know was, for me, um, I felt a bit uncomfortable in using the word author. Am I really an author? Authors are other people. Authors are people like my publisher who published me. And, because I'm a reader at the moment, if I panned back, I am surrounded by books because I've always been a good reader and I've always admired authors to have that skill and that ability to sit down and pen something in my respect, from the imagination, because I'm a fiction writer. So I just wanted to more or less check out with you that now you've added author to your resume. How comfortable are you? How are you wearing it and how are you feeling about it?
It feels a natural transition, if I could say that. Um, so don't forget, I'd already written, I was part of a book anthology just shortly after the pandemic,
Tell us
navigating.
about that.
Yeah, so in actual facts, I didn't answer your question earlier on. That was where I met the lovely Janet McNeish. So a part of an empowerment group
Yes.
called Navigating Life. So it was a women's ministry started by an amazing lady called Claudine Reed, MBE. You may know her.
Yes, I don't know yet.
She used to run the women's ministry prior to the pandemic, would meet roughly maybe every month, would have brunch in a hotel. And they were fantastic. It was an opportunity for all of us ladies to get together, be in the room, have speakers from different walks of life to give us nuggets on finance, health, etc., etc. And then once the pandemic hit, of course, we had to go virtual. So if you remember again that period, Pamela, where it was all manic mayhem, you don't know how things are going to pan out. Actually, that was the best thing that could have happened for that platform because we went global. Zoom
Right.
became our friend, and as opposed to it just being a close knit community of women in and around London, sometimes outside of London as well, people would travel down. We were now reaching a global audience. And then one day, Claudine had this idea. Well, there are all these different women. I'm looking at women from Africa, from Europe, from America. You've all got stories. What if we were to come together and do an anthology where you all share a period in your life, share a story about a time in your life where you went through something very challenging, but the main brief was you have to leave the reader with an upbeat ending. How did you come through that? Because we don't want to just leave them hanging with the negative and it was all, gloom and doom. And that was the brief. And I remember at the time putting my hand up before I even figured out what I was going to discuss. So that anthology was my first kind of foray into actual writing. I just felt compelled. I just felt naturally drawn to do it. Like I said, I had no idea how it was going to look. The ideas, fortunately, came flowing in no time. I shared about a period in my life where I was dealing with a very debilitating condition, endometriosis. Um,
Wow, I can't believe that. I think I've got the book somewhere here.
Navigating.
Was it a virtual book launch as well?
It was just after the
Yeah,
pandemic.
right. I remember it, and I do remember your chapter. And perhaps we can discuss a little bit like that around raising some awareness as well. Yes, so please continue. What was your chapter about?
Yeah, I should have a book around here somewhere. So I decided to just share about that period where it was a two, it was how can I describe it? It was it's one thing dealing with a condition that leaves you completely bedridden every single month because the excruciating pain would manifest every time you have your period. Um, and I often described it as at best, every single month I'd be out for a good few days because the pain was so bad. And this was from childhood, because as soon as I
Yeah,
hit puberty, that's when it manifests. And at worst was when because it's a degenerative condition, it was getting worse and worse, not realizing it. And I went for 17 years. The average period of going without a diagnosis is actually around 9. I went for 17 years. I guess because I lived in different countries, started off, dealing with the condition when I was in Sierra Leone, came back over to the UK, and it was still going on. And all the while, Pamela, not knowing what was really wrong with you just made it so much worse. So you're now dealing with this physical condition, but then mentally and psychologically as well, you're being severely affected because you're made to feel like some kind of hypochondriac. So every time you tell the doctors this is what's going on, it's like, yeah, it sounds like period pains. Why don't you just take some paracetamol? You'll be fine. When actually, at the height of the pain, even morphine wasn't quite cutting it. So yeah, I decided to share about how challenging that period was for me, the lows and the utter lows, and then ending up having operations, and then actually, unfortunately, suffering major complications from some of those operations. And at the end of all of that, the pain came back with a vengeance after having the major surgery, which the doctors had said, okay, this is what you need to do to get you fixed. A few months later, my period returned and they came back with a vengeance. And I remember literally in despair and utter confusion saying to my consultant, so hang on, you were the one, you cut me open, you've done X, Y, Z, but I'm still back to where I started. What's going on? And I still remember his words to this day. I said, yeah, sorry, Miss Scott Sawyer, but we don't have a cure for the condition. So you're just going to have to manage the pain with painkillers for life. And at that point, deep down in my spirit, Pamela, I just knew that it was almost like he was speaking to somebody else. I just immediately rejected it. Because back then, we were familiar with the stories about Michael Jackson. I loved him to bits, with the painkillers, the addiction to all that. And all
Right,
these
right.
that we hear about who have this, addiction to prescription drugs and so on. I was like, no, that's not me. I immediately rejected it in my spirit. And I guess that was the start of my healing. So even though I was still suffering and dealing with the condition then, but my mindset had started to slowly shift. And yeah, one thing led to the next. I did a bit of research. Again, was surrounded by a great circle of beautiful souls and forward-thinking individuals, people who think outside the box, should we say, people who think outside the house, people who believe in alternative remedies and solutions. And that was how I discovered natural remedies and managed to self-heal 100%. And then what happened after that was I felt so compelled by the success of these remedies, the fact that I'd gone from utter misery to total elation. Like, I actually did it. I just felt so strongly about it that I had to share my story. And that was how my YouTube channel started, because I wanted to reach
Right.
out also suffering with this condition. And indeed, other people dealing with other health ailments. Literally to say, listen, I'm no doctor, do your due diligence. But I can tell you, for me, this is what worked. And I shared my story. And this was despite the fact, as I mentioned earlier, I don't necessarily talk about my private affairs, but I just felt like I wish I'd known then what I know now. I may not have gone through all the things that I did. So if that makes a difference to one other woman's life, then great, so be it. And that was the
Oh,
anthology.
wow. Oh, wow. And what was the leap from writing a chapter to then writing a whole book? What a leap. And did you think that taking part in an anthology was a good place for you to start?
Yeah, sure. I love writing. I actually love writing. I often describe myself as a bit of a grammar geek. So my mum's a school teacher, retired school teacher, bless her, and English was her thing.
Ah,
So yeah, I got the two A's at school that I had no choice but to excel. And yeah, I call it my geeky gift. I am the person who, if you write something and there are any errors, they literally glow in red. And I have to point out that no, that apostrophe shouldn't be there. And no, you should spell it There, not Thir. So that's
yeah.
always been in my system. And so making the transition came very naturally. But it's interesting you should talk about this author title, because I think maybe because I've just been in that arena for so long, I never really sat down to think about the distinction between a writer and an author. But it's only the other day, believe it or not, that I fully grasped the fact that not all authors are writers. And it sounds obvious, but I never sat down and thought about it because, of course, anybody can author a book, and that's not even talking about ghostwriting. But writing, as you know, I believe is a skill to be able to, develop that prose and flow and make it make sense to an external audience. Because of course it will make sense up here, which is why the process can sometimes be so long because you
Yes.
pour over it. I mean, I edited and re-edited the editor. It just never seemed to end at one point. Because you're there building away and, you're wanting it to be, personally, I want it to be a good reading experience for whoever picks it up. So it's actually a memoir, but it's also a storybook workbook. So the pages that are
Oh,
blank, I left a page or so blank after each chapter. And you've got the chapter title, and then I've given the reader an opportunity to just reflect and resonate. So, give the world the sunshine, tell Jesus the rest. And I've got there, what words of wisdom surrounded you as a child that helped shape you into who you are today? Is there anyone saying that you grew up with, which has become a defining go to for you? And then you can just journal and just, yeah, reflect. And hopefully, it will be cathartic, it will be therapeutic. Um, it'll be nice for them to be able to also just get something from it so they can just sit back, pause, like you say, and think of a time, a moment in time when that saying also resonated for them and how they feel they have grown through it and developed. Then that's my job done. And then what I did at the end as well is, and it was amazing how I just kept getting these divine downloads, Pamela. At the end, I thought, actually, what would be nice would be to give them a bonus appendix at the end of mantras. So I actually turned each of the chapter titles into daily mantras. And again, they've got an opportunity to use the chapter titles as a kind of forward plan. So the longest road has a turn, for instance, and I've got there, think about a time in the past when you struggled with a particular issue that seemed to drag on endlessly. If faced with a similar issue today, how would you better navigate and prepare for it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? So it's a kind of complete work, a package. It's all there.
I love the word that you used about divine downloads, because as a fiction author, when I tell people that my characters come to me to tell me their stories, or I do remember one particular time I thought the book was finished, and a character said to me, "No, it isn't, because I still have more to say," and started to say it, and I added another 8,000 words to the book. My publisher wasn't impressed because she had already thought the book was done. And so I'm very interested in when you talk about divine, downloads, and how you were directed in a particular way to write the book in the way that you did that. Can you give us another example of when you maybe thought a chapter was done, or a sentence was complete, and perhaps you heard otherwise that you needed to maybe add more to your story?
Yeah, I mean, the divine downloads came in a variety of formats. So ultimately, yes, I was very, very, very spirit led throughout the writing process. But that's the thing, Holy Spirit moves in diverse ways. So sometimes he whispers through friends and family. And thank God I had the presence of mind to, again, within my close circle of friends, I had some very, very meaningful reviews right at the start of me writing the manuscript. And they were fantastic in terms of their feedback, because these are people who know me. And a few of them came back a bit like you. And, one of them was like, but yeah, you've mentioned all these great things, but why didn't you talk about your university time? Or why didn't you talk about, when you were working here, expand a bit more on what happened, and so on and so forth. And I had to go away and sit with all of that. I did do a little bit of pausing and reflecting for sure. My husband as well was very vocal about his views about what was in the book and what was being shared and all of that stuff. And some of them were challenging, because sometimes you feel like you've got it, and then you're presented with an alternative way of, maybe presenting the facts, and you have to go back to the drawing board and just, again, sit with it and figure out, okay, if I want this to be a comprehensive work and I want it to, again, always thinking and always being mindful of the reader's experience, how do I manage all of these competing views and opinions and downloads? And it took a lot of, digging deep into my spirit. But it was great, because I feel that at that stage, the book was nowhere near complete. It was nowhere near ready. A bit like you coming up with the extra 8,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
Over that period, like, I can't say precisely how many additional thousands of words, but definitely it was not anywhere near this finished book that you see before you today. I think the chapter that got the most of maybe my time, attention, would possibly be chapter 7. Sometimes you got to just delayer, unlayer, then relayer. And this was quite deep. So this was me talking, getting very personal and quite vulnerable, actually, about having to learn and unlearn a few things. Yeah, over the years, we pick up certain habits and practices that you may not realize don't stand you in good stead anymore and not serving you. And that's, may I just put it out there, it's across the board. Again, in terms of self-development and self-actualization, something that's it's become a big thing for me in the last, several years. But so my professional life, my personal life, I've had to grow and develop. And I'm an avid follower of YouTube. I've got lots of, thought leaders and some amazing individuals that I follow, Tony Robbins and Mel Robbins and TD Jakes and all these, individuals, Mind Valley, just to sort of expand the mind and learn about, well, what's beyond there without getting too deep. What is this all about anyway? Why am I here? What's my purpose? So there's all of that. But in chapter 7, I decided to turn the spotlight on myself. And actually, there's a paragraph there that I might just read out to you, if that's okay, if I can find it.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I decided to actually, turn the spotlight on myself and use my love life as the example. So let me find the exact chapter, because I thought, people want to know how you developed professionally and personally and all of that. But when it comes to affairs of the heart, I think it always just has a deeper pull, because I happen to know, quite a few individuals, I guess, who are still seeking love. And for me, again, the caveat is, this is what worked for Simone. I genuinely feel like if I hadn't come to a place of understanding that it's very easy to point the finger and say, well, that previous relationship didn't work out because X, Y, Z. But sometimes you do need to look inwardly, take a long, hard look in that mirror and figure out, well, okay, are there a few things that I could have done better myself? Going forward, are there a few things that I should maybe take into account that may not be compatible with a healthy relationship. So yeah, and it's typical when you're trying to find
Of course, yes, you can never find it.
actual.
Um,
Oh yeah, there it is.
got it, good.
So it starts off. This chapter starts off. I'm a big natural wildlife fan, and the words of this chapter title hit me in my spirit some time ago while thinking about a particular species of insects. I'm more of a big cat girl myself, but I learned something important about a small, beautiful insect, the butterfly. The natural laws in the animal kingdom show us how the butterfly undergoes metamorphosis in order to progress to the next stage of life. Now, if a tiny creature like this grasps how to evolve in life in order to survive, what makes us humans think we can skip this process and make progress
Hmm.
in time? Hence my thoughts on the layering process. Case study, Simone Scott Sawyer, The Becoming of Mrs. Smart. I have a distinct recollection of getting to a certain point in my life when I realized that in order for me to achieve certain goals, my life methodologies that had consciously or subconsciously become part of me had to change. In other words, I needed to unlearn and relearn a few things. This was true for several areas of my life, so gather close and I will share one area where this shift yielded results: my love life. Now that got your attention, didn't it? And I'll leave it there.
Oh, wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing a little snippet of your, of your book as well. So I'm intrigued to know that. But 2 points. You said you love YouTube, interviews. You mentioned a couple of people as well. And at one period of my life, I couldn't start my work day unless I'd listened to Trent Sheldon, because he was, he still is a motivational speaker, and I actually saw him when he came to the UK as well,
Oh,
and
wow.
got to meet him somewhere out there. There's a photo of me and him together, but
Is he, because he looks like his
yeah,
book
if I
really.
remember rightly, I think he was an American football player. At some stage, and after his career, he launched himself as a motivational speaker, and how important his faith is to him in the work that he does as well. So he never ends, he always starts with God and he always ends with God, as being the focus as well. But as I said, there was some stages where in my life where I thought that I needed a little boost before I started the day. There's always that particular office that you don't want to go to because the people are terrible, um, and it's disorganized and there's lots of chaos going on. And I needed to go in covered. I also felt a need to light a candle in that place as well because there was just so much that was going on, so much. I was felt as though I was being attacked left, right, and centre, and needed to, independent help to come in and draw resources in, open the Bible and read from it as well. Found the Psalms quite comforting. So it's wonderful to hear that. That's something that you're into as well in terms of like motivational speakers and podcasts and so on. I hope you have watched my TEDx talk as well. And
Okay.
is that something that you would consider doing at some point?
Absolutely. I have got my sights set on that. In fact, it's funny, my husband and I met a friend of his just the other day, and he did a TEDx talk as well some years ago. So again, it's great being surrounded by individuals who have done it. And the inspiration that that provides is second to none. So yes, I probably will be having a conversation about that with
Uh,
you at
Happy to
some
have that conversation at some point.
point, because
Um,
I'm trying to press in more into my public speaking as well. So that's definitely part of the overall plan to get the message out there. Because there's more than a message in this book. It's it's inspirational, it's motivational. The sayings, the experiences that I went through definitely speak to my 20-something-year-old self, my 30-something-year-old self. So yeah, it's something I need to share on stages with people.
Oh, that's wonderful. And is there a part two? Because I'm certain this book covers a particular period of your life, but if I had to write my biography, I think I would have to write it in stages because I'm still here. It's 2026.
Mm.
I've picked up 5 awards and in just a few weeks that I would want to, share if I was writing a book. So what's happening for Simone now? You're coming, you've got the launch. I'm going to encourage my viewers to go back and look for you to have a look at your launch because it would have already been passed by the time people get to this podcast. What's next then? What are the other? Because you had other ideas for books, if I remember our conversation almost back in June last year. You had other ideas. Where are you on that particular journey?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, Pamela. And again, thank you. You were so encouraging at the time. I remember I was sharing some business ideas that
Yeah.
I had in terms of creating familial story legacies. So putting my ghostwriting skills to use and capturing stories of individuals. So those of us who are, in the diaspora, um, a friend and I, in fact, she brought the idea to me and said, listen, she's from Nigeria originally, born in the UK, but family from Nigeria. So we have a lot in common, West African heritage. And she was wanting to capture her father's story when he first came over. He works as an accountant and obviously went through the ups and the downs, back in the 60s and 70s with the racism and all of that stuff. But somehow, met his wife, beautiful family, children, grandchildren. And with the grandchildren, the children of today who may happen to be of mixed heritage, her in-laws from across Europe, France, and Germany. I hate to use the word diluted, but there is a sort of dilution of the culture where the grandchildren and nieces and nephews may not be as aware of Nigerian values and traditions and all of that stuff unless there's an active attempt to share stories, which is why I'm so passionate about storytelling. So that's definitely in the mix for sure. It just kind of went slightly on the back burner while I was trying to push this book out. And in fact, I've got a call coming up with her straight after this. I deliberately timed it because I know I'm going to be all charged up after chatting with
Right.
Pamela. So her and I are going to hopefully pick up where we left off. So that's happening. As for part two, who knows? Possibly. We shall see. I am working on a second book though. And that's with the lovely Marcia, who you introduced me to. So I'm really looking forward to getting that completed again. I started doing that maybe around the same time as this or just before. I had to put that on pause to get this completed. So I'm really looking forward to just finishing that. I'm so looking forward to getting into it with Marcia. As you know, she's an amazing individual. Um, and
We're talking about Marcia
and
Spence. Yeah. Hmm.
yes, I followed your advice and got in touch. It it's been such an interesting journey, Pamela. I digress slightly because I think when we had that conversation, there were all these pots on the fire. So it's this book, which is about my mother, the second book, that was brewing away. This was also brewing away. It wasn't this then, it was just ideas in my head. And then I had the option of different publishers. So there was Marcy on the one hand, and then there's my other publisher, Camille, who I'm going to give a big shout out to, who published this book. But at the time, it wasn't clear to me. And I was thinking, I really want to work with Marcia, but I've worked with Camille before. And I just took it to Chat GPT and just put all the information in and said, okay, This is what I'm working on.
Right.
These are the publishers I'm considering. Who would be the best fit? I already had an inkling, but it was just great that Chat GBT confirmed it.
Mm.
And that's how I made the decision. So Camille published book one, and by God's grace, Marcia and Spence will publish book two. So
Yes, I
that's
saw Marcia after a number of years. I saw her at the, let me get it right, the literature. No, it's called the Lit Awards, and I can't quite remember right now what the titles stand for. But yeah, here we go. Literary Inspirational Trailblazers Award
it.
that happened last Saturday. And it was like a homecoming for me because I had a similar dilemma as well. Marcia obviously had published Loving the Brothers, and then I got a 3 book deal for Loving the um, Children and Loving the Sisters, and I had to make that decision about, do I stick with Marcia, who has never steered me wrong, and created such a supportive environment for me to be able to do it. I was her first fiction writer, because she specializes mainly in biographies and memoirs. Or do I go to a traditional publisher? And I didn't know anything about Chat GPT then, but sometimes you are directed to follow where you're being fed and where you can grow.
Mhm.
So I ended up with this 3 traditional book offer from a company in the United States. But coming home to go to the Trailblazers Awards last week and being honored, I was just happy. The certificate is downstairs, it's beautiful. And I was just happy to pick up the certificate, get my picture taken on stage, and walk off until they announced the Founders' Choice Awards. So, out of that group of 60 authors, they had picked 5 individuals each who they wanted to specially honor, and to be described by Marcia as the cornerstone of her publishing house. The tears were coming before I even got to the stage, and my little award is here that I
Ah,
got from Marcia. So I'm hoping to see you at the next awards next year. It's going to be bigger and better, but you're one of her authors now, and hopefully you will be selected as someone who is a trailblazer in your field, and to be described as a trailblazer. As I said, I was just happy to pick up my certificate and proud to walk off the stage, but to be a founder's choice and
that's
to be
absolutely.
recognized in that way was, and it's helped me and Marcia to reconnect as well. And we didn't fall out or anything. She would have gone for a traditional publishing offer if one would come her way, but it gave us the opportunity to reconnect.
Yeah.
She has always been in the background, always been a great support, when my mum died and so on. So she's always been in the background, but it was nice to bring her to the fore last Saturday and celebrate her, because that's something that she's always wanted to do. She's always wanted to have her own awards. So to see her achieve that in a room full of people, I would say there was at least, I think my husband said there was about 300 people in the room who came out to support the awards. Was absolutely magnificent. So, Simone, I think you're in good hands, and I
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing what the second book looks like.
Absolutely. Can I just double check? Was it the inaugural awards? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
her very first one, and
Amazing.
it was at the Grand Connaught Rooms. So I don't know if you've had a chance to go there, but their rooms are
Holborn, right?
absolutely beautiful. Light refreshments, spoken word. There was a singer there as well. We were just celebrating ourselves and giving ourselves a huge pat on the back, because each author knows that this isn't an easy thing. You don't wake up and churn out a book, and then that's it. If you want to do something of quality and true to your art, bearing in mind I'm coming from a writing background, but I was never it was on my wish list to
Mm.
publish a book someday.
Mm.
Yeah, I did thank her for making that dream of mine come true. So it was remarkable. And thank you for following my advice as well. Not everybody does, but thank you for following my advice. I hope that
Oh,
that really works out for you.
God. And again, this is the thing, we've spoken about this circle. Pamela, it's no coincidence that I met your sister many, many moons ago, and here we are today. And, just the nuggets that you've shared with me over the years, and obviously points me in the right direction in terms of publishers. Never met Marcia before, but she just comes across as such a beautiful soul. Somebody who's, very generous in terms of the work she does and just giving. And as I say, I can't wait to get into it now to get this second book out there. And this is one of the reasons why I miss London, because had I been in London, I would have been live at that event for sure, for absolute sure. In fact, at one point, I thought it was online and I was literally on the verge
You
of going.
said. Yes, you said you were looking for the link online. Yes, and it's set to expand, and it's set to go to other countries as well. So perhaps it might be easier for you to travel from where you are, maybe in states, somewhere in America. And I know she has plans for the Lit Awards in Jamaica and Essence Fest, which would again be a dream come true for me to go to the Essence Festival and do a mini takeover there. She has got a really good partner, business partner in Freddie Nwanga. Who and they're a dream to work together and to watch them on stage as well. They bounce off of each other. So yes, it was good to reconnect with her, last Saturday, and I'm glad that she's in your camp around your books as well. Simone, if people wanted to get hold of you or to get copies of your book, how would that happen?
Um, the best thing would be to go to Amazon so I could share the links with you. That would be the easiest thing. And in terms of connecting with me, if there's because it's been quite a journey. And the interesting thing, I was saying this to a girlfriend of mine the other day, was when you write, it's amazing how much you evolve as a person, as a professional, and you then start to peel back layers and realize, actually, yeah, this is what I was meant to do, and this is what I can offer. Um, and it's become so clear to me that I am a story selling strategist. I take my clients from storytelling to story selling. I'm a published book author, best selling, according to Amazon, and a speaker as well. And so I've used my story to say, listen, these are some of the things that I went through. This is what stood me in good stead. I've had the ups, the downs, but I came through it. I pray that you get something from it. But more importantly, what I say to readers or whoever I connect with out there is, if you feel you have a story, um, regardless of whatever stage that's at, it might just be that you're journaling and you're not really sure how to transition from a journal to a manuscript. That's something I can help with. If it's a case of getting the manuscript edited, polished, cleaned, or you've got the book, you want it promoted, what have you, people can connect with me. And the best place would be my LinkedIn. So that's information I can share with you as well.
Right, we have come to the end of our podcast. You're starting to do that shifting again in the last couple of seconds, so I don't know what that's about, but we have come to the end. I think you said quite clearly people can contact you on LinkedIn for details about your book and your other services that you have as well. It stopped moving for now. So that's wonderful. Are you also on social media?
I am. These are things I'm working on, Pamela. We hear about, as an entrepreneur, you need to be visible and on it. So LinkedIn, I am trying to make a concerted effort to be a lot more visible. Facebook as well, and Instagram. So I can share all of
Right.
those details for sure.
Yeah. Yes, and I will include those in the YouTube link, so that people can then just click directly on them and find you. So, Simone, you've been amazing.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful to catch up with you after all this time. You know, so get out. And what I love about you, you've gone from not just talking about it, you've actually done it. And I am ever so proud of you that you've been able to take those conversations and move along in your book journey. Congratulations on becoming an author. I hope that at some stage, while you're here in the UK, we can meet up for a coffee over at Westfield. It would be wonderful to catch up with you in person. But for now, Simone, thank you. Stay where you are. I'm going to pause this tape now. Bye
Thank
for
you.
now.
Thank you so much.